What's going on, guys? Bosch here, and welcome to another Walking Dead review. Just before we go any further, I'd like to say that this will be a spoiler alert, obviously, just because if you haven't seen the episode yet, you will be ruined if you watch this, because I'm going to talk about what happened and basically give my opinions. So, once again, we had a lot of information given to us this week, and very little action, which a lot of people are complaining about. And I think I'll address that in a bit, but I'll just briefly sort of explain, sorry, I got an itchy eye, briefly explain what we saw in the episode. So, yesterday's episode, whatever you want to say, was the very, what we've been waiting for. It was the showdown between the governor and Rick, and they finally meet face to face. They've never seen each other before. They'd been in the same room, but they'd never actually seen each other, and it was very interesting. Things that really stood out for me for this episode was the fact that it was a very big sort of comparison episode in a way, and we saw Rick and the governor talking, trying to work out some terms so that they could, resolve this peacefully rather than shooting each other up. And we saw Rick and the governor sort of share a common loss in their wives. Now, the governor's wife died before all the zombie stuff happened. She died in a car accident, just a complete accident. There's no one to blame or anything like that. And obviously Laurie died just recently through childbirth. But we saw Rick and the governor share a drink over their common losses, and I thought that was a big moment, because I think it showed us that Rick, he realizes that, not everyone is quite so untrustworthy. People aren't all bad. Even though the governor is pretty evil, he doesn't really like the governor. I think he realizes that deep down he's still just a person. He's not, you know what I mean? Like, he's not just an alien, or he's not he hasn't got any feelings. He does have feelings deep down, so that was pretty cool. And also I think it made Rick realize that, he needs to start stepping up a little bit more. His people trust him, and he needs to sort of stop being such a crazy fool. So there was that. That's what I got from the episode anyway. And the other comparisons for me were very, very interesting. We saw Daryl and Martinez going head to head in a Walker takeout battle. That was pretty cool. Albeit brief. It was very brief, but it was still very cool. I very much enjoyed that. And they sort of, again, they shared a common loss too. They shared some stories from what happened, and they kind of bonded in a way, And then there was Herschel and Milton, who Milton took a scientific interest in Herschel's leg, because Herschel obviously got bit and Rick cut the leg off, and Milton wanted to study it and find out, how quickly he took it off, and did it effectively stop the infection spreading. And sorry, I've got a really itchy eye, excuse me. But yeah, that was very, very cool. I very much enjoyed that. I thought it was a very good way to handle the episode. And for me, like I said, it was all about comparisons, and I think it really showed us what could have been. In any other situation, these people could have been friends, and it's just not how it worked out this time. It was just sorry, there's a noise outside. It's just not how it worked out. Things happened, and people start shooting each other, and they're obviously not friends. So I thought it was cool just to see that they did show that they could have possibly gotten along in an alternate universe or something like that. That was kind of cool. And then there was Andrea. Andrea was left kind of just floundering in the middle, not knowing what to do. She didn't know whether to go back to Woodbury. She didn't know whether to go back to the prison. Eventually she did go back to Woodbury. We're not sure exactly why, but from the previews, I don't want to give too much away, but it looks like she's planning to kill the governor, and I think Tyrese and stuff come back, which I was kind of wondering what was going to become of them after they landed in Woodbury. So yeah, overall it was a pretty good episode. I very much enjoyed it. And it was obviously just a lot of talking. And the main things were, Rick didn't really come to an agreement with the governor. The governor said, look, if you give me Michonne, you know, we can end this right now. And that turned out to be a lie. He basically just said that to get Rick to bring the majority of the group to that place so he could ambush them. And the main thing, one of the other main things for me was right at the end, we had both parties going back to their respective camps and effectively lying to their people, basically. You know, governor went back and said, well, you know, he didn't quite lie to Milton. He kind of just said, well, this is the real plan. We're going to ambush them. This is the best way to avoid a slaughter. And Milton pointed out, well, it's going to be a slaughter. You can't get. There's no two ways about it. You're going to get a slaughter either way. And I think this is a turning point for Milton. I think he's gonna flip on the governor and help Andrea. So that's my prediction. But I might make a more detailed prediction video later in the week. But yeah, and then we saw Rick back at the prison, who didn't even mention to anyone that the governor wanted Michonne. He just said, this guy wants us dead, he wants the prison, so we're going to fight. And later on, maybe a few minutes later, he did express to Herschel that he wanted them scared. He needed them scared so that they would fight, I guess. He wanted Herschel to know, because he wanted Herschel to talk him out of giving Michonne up, just to keep them safe. And he said, if we give up Michonne, he's going to kill us anyway. He does kind of realize that. And I think we're really gearing up now. I think maybe one more episode, and then it'll be like a 2-part finale maybe, before we start getting some real action. But I think it's going to get really good. I'm really looking forward to it. So that's pretty much my review, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later.